My today's guest is been into BMW for a long time, a huge electric car enthusiast, a brand ambassador, if you will, and he has defected to Tesla from many years of being a fan of BMW. I have to say that I was very surprised. He's been a friend for a while, so when he told me it was on the phone, and literally, I have to say my jaw just dropped faster than a Porsche Taycan charging rate specs. I have to say that I did not see that coming. He was pretty easy to book on the show because it's our own Tom Moloughney who was already scheduled to be here. So we're going to talk to him because now he's driven his car for a while. He's going to compare the two and really tell us, what took him to actually, kind of forfeit the years and years of BMW experience and decided to go with Tesla, which, as you probably know, he didn't really even write about that much. He had his reasons. He'll tell us why. So all of this is coming up next. Taking over the world, electrifying the world, E4 Electric. Welcome to E4 Electric, your number one source of unbiased electric car news. If this is your first time here, go ahead and click on the subscribe button and you can defect to this channel that easily. That way you won't miss anything moving forward. Of course, there is a bell notification icon that you should hit as well. So this was actually an original image that I created for this, but we decided to go with this as well because I'm assuming that's how we imagine Tom driving his BMW and thinking about the Model 3, which he did get it in black, which now is actually an upgrade for $750. And I definitely want to hear the story from him because even I haven't heard the entire story about how he got started, why he decided to go with BMW. There's actually a video out there of him doing some promotional materials for BMW. So this is an interesting story, but really the bigger point here is that there have been and there will be more and more people who are defecting, is essentially, and not just from BMW, from the majority of car makers when they decide that they just want a better car for a lot of times same amount of money. These two cars are kind of the same price even after the incentives. And they're just going to start picking Tesla until the others get their stuff together. So this is a pretty good exercise and a training video, if you will, for all of the legacy manufacturers to understand why people don't want to buy their cars anymore and in larger and larger numbers, and they all go to Tesla. Before that, of course, I just want to let you know that this video and this channel is sponsored by Byton. Check out their all-electric SUV coming to the US and Europe starting at only $45,000. But you know what costs you $0 is to reserve one, about a minute of your time. And conveniently, I have a link to that in the description of this video. So go ahead and reserve your Byton today if you haven't done so for some reason. All right, so without further ado, let's bring in Tom and pick his brain about this. Tom, how are you, my friend?
All right, Alex. Good afternoon.
All right, so let's start from the very beginning because I don't think a lot of people really know. I mean, people know that you have a BMW i3 and you used to drive a Mini, but not a lot of people know that you've been like a hardcore brand ambassador for them for a while. So give a start from the very beginning when you discovered electric cars and why you decided to go with a BMW.
Sure. So would have to backpedal somewhere around 14, 15 years ago when I was doing research to see if there were any alternative fuel vehicles to buy. I was interested in an electric car. I was even interested in maybe a hydrogen car, but I wanted to get an alternative fuel vehicle. And there was really nothing available. I could spend $110,000 and get this little two-seat sports car from a upstart electric company that nobody had heard of at the time called Tesla. But other than that, that was the only thing I could do, or make my own homemade electric car, which a lot of people were doing conversions. And I had considered it, but then I stumbled across this application online that said, do you want to drive an electric car? And I immediately caught my attention. And it was from BMW, and they were doing this pilot program for a year that was going to lease 450 fully electric Mini Coopers and some in California, and then about half of them in New York, New Jersey area. And I was in the New York, New Jersey area, and I filled out the application, and I basically forgot about it. 6 months later, I got a call, and they said, "Listen, you've been selected to be in the program. Would you like to be?" And I said, "Yes." So I got my first electric car in June of 2009. So it's 10 years now that I've been driving electric cars. And it was a Mini Cooper. I was in that program for a year. Then BMW extended it for another year. And then they came out with their second test car. It was called the Active E, which is up on the screen now. You see me in that little video charging it. And that was a all-electric 1 Series. And again, BMW had this pilot program to pretty much learn about people's charging habits, behavior, range anxiety, all that stuff. And also to check out the motor. They had built their own in-house motors and power electronics and charging equipment. And the Active E was a test bed for that, which those components would eventually go in their production electric car, the i3. So I had the Mini E for 2.5 years. I had 2 Active E's because I totaled one of them and wasn't my fault. But I had Active E's for 2.5 years. And then I got my i3 in 2014, the range extender. Then I got my second i3 in 2018, the i3S that I currently have a lease on. So I've been driving BMWs now, electrics, for 10 years, and I've had 5 of them. I can't imagine too many people that have had more electric BMWs than me. There might be somebody out there, but I've had 5 of them, and now I'm the proud owner of a 2019 Model 3.
Right. So yeah, well, I don't even think that the CEO of BMW has owned that many electric BMWs. So and then also we should probably remind people that you've been writing about electric cars for a while for InsideEVs mainly, and you kind of stayed away from covering Tesla. You kind of tried covering BMW and other brands, electric car brands. Tell us a little bit about why you kind of stayed away from that topic up until now.
Yeah, so a lot of what I wrote was personal experience, and I had been driving electric BMWs. I had a blog that I started back in like 2010, I think, and it became really popular. I was getting 20, 30,000 views a month back then, which is not bad for a blog that I wasn't advertising or anything. And that's when I started writing for a couple of electric car outlets like Green Car Reports, plugincars.com. And then eventually when InsideEVs formed, InsideEVs. So a lot of my articles were about my personal experience with the Mini E, the Active E, and then the i3. And I wrote a lot about general electric car, the state of the electric car industry and infrastructure and maybe public policy. But I didn't really write a whole lot about Tesla because, it wasn't that I had anything against them. So many other people were writing so much about them. I didn't really think I had a lot to offer, especially the fact that I wasn't driving one on a daily basis. And I think some of the readers on InsideEVs took that as I didn't like or endorse Tesla and that I was just a BMW homer. And it really wasn't the case. It was the fact that this is what I was driving. This is what I had the most experience with. And, that's why I tended to write a lot about BMW electrics.
Okay, so now a Tesla had really came out with their prototype in early 2012. That's when I saw it. Before that, I knew nothing about electric cars except for I always thought they looked fugly, and I didn't want one. But then when I saw Model S as a prototype, I put my deposit down and got in a queue. When did you start thinking about possibly owning a Tesla?
So I always loved the Model S. But it's just too big of a car for me. We don't have any kids. It's just Meredith and I, my wife. So I really didn't need a big car, and I prefer driving smaller cars. And that's, I think, part of the reason why I like the i3 and still really enjoy driving it. It's a nice small hatchback. It's really tossable. It's fun to drive. So, I mean, the Model S is a great car, but quite honestly, I just didn't want to drive a big car as my daily driver. So that's really more than any other reason why I didn't take the plunge and get a Model S. And then when the Model 3 was announced, I started thinking about it. I was one of the original reservation holders from day one, but I canceled my reservation last year when they called me and said you can configure now, or not called me, sent me an email. And basically because honestly at the time, Alex, I really wasn't satisfied with what I had been seeing from Tesla as far as production quality. I had a lot of friends that took some of the early Model 3s, and I wouldn't have been happy if those were my cars. So I canceled my reservation and said, I'm going to wait a little while, see how the quality goes, see how production goes, and really, see what else is out there. And I really did consider the Kona and the Nero EVs, the great cars. I recommend them to a lot of people. But when all is said and done, I believe the Model 3 for me is just the best electric car on the market today.
All right. Now, at what point, not only I understand you got excited about the Model 3, obviously, but do you think you also got disappointed with BMW in particular, or just other electric car alternative from legacy manufacturers, or what's coming down the pipe from the startups? Like, tell me where this maybe a possible disappointment has started with the Beamer.
Yeah, so I could talk about this for hours, Alex. Being in the program that I was in, the pilot programs for BMW, I got to really talk and interact with a lot of the BMW product managers, with their engineers. It also helped that I lived really close to BMW's North American headquarters in Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey. So I could just shoot up there if I had a problem with my Mini or my Active-E, bring it in the shop, the engineers would be there. So I really got to know a lot of people in BMW, and that actually helped me become kind of like one of their unofficial EV ambassadors. I made documentaries with BMW on electric mobility, commercials, a whole bunch of videos. It seemed like everything that they had going on with electric vehicles, if there was some kind of an event, they invited me. So I really became, as you were saying, really deeply entrenched in BMW's electric vehicle program. That said, when the i3 came out, I loved the i3, and I still like my i3. But the i3 came out in 2013, and BMW hasn't produced any fully electric vehicles since then. It's 6 years. And the iX3, which is an all-electric version of BMW's X3, is going to be the next BMW that comes out, which is going to be next year, 2020. So it'll be 7 full years since BMW brought out their first electric vehicle. And, to me, that just is too long. I wrote an article for BMW blog about 3 years ago, and it was 2 parts. It was, how can BMW fend off the charge of the Tesla Model 3? This is before the Model 3 came out. I had imagined that it was going to really, really eat into BMW's 3 Series sales, and it has. Look, it's the BMW CEO now is stepping down, and a lot of the blame is being placed on the fact that they haven't kept up with the electrification. Their profit is down, their market share is down, their sales are down. And while that's not all Model 3, the Model 3 has a lot to do with it. It really is the perfect competitor for BMW's 3 Series, and BMW's 3 Series is their bread and butter. Let me give you an example. 2 weeks after I had my car, one of my longtime friends, I was at a barbecue, and he has an M3. I think it's a second one. And he asked me about my car, and I said, "Do you want to take her for a drive?" Sure. We went out for a quick spin, came back. The next day, he called me up and asked me for my referral code. He ordered a Model 3 Performance, took delivery of it like 2 weeks ago, about a week ago, right before the tax credit dropped. And he returned his M3 3 months early and just paid out the lease. So, I mean, there's a perfect example of what's going on, and that's happening a lot. So, BMW really has to look very hard at themselves, because they were one of the first of the legacy OEMs to really invest a ton of money in electrification. This is going back in 2008, 2009, a decade ago. and their product managers knew that this electric wave was coming. They knew that the industry was transitioning to electric. I talked to them. I was in meetings with them. They all knew this was coming. But the fact of the matter is, I think that they thought they could slow walk it and wait another 5 or 6 years before they went all into electrification. And that's coming back to bite them now. It's very unfortunate. There's good people over there. There's a lot of people at BMW that really believe in electrification. I just think that management made the decision that they're going to slow walk this. They're going to try to squeeze out as much profits out of internal combustion as they can for as long as they can. And now they're paying the price.
All right, so I mean, this is your story. I don't think it's really, I mean, obviously not everybody's a BMW ambassador or writer for InsideEVs, but overall, as a customer, I think your story has been pretty common. Model 3s are being made, with more and more and more at the higher rate. There was a report very recently they're actually trying to double by the end of the year because of their, changing stuff around. I'm not really sure if it's that possible, but the Tesla factory in Shanghai is going to start making them, I believe, in only a few months earlier than expected, which is pretty uncommon for Tesla. But let's talk about just a regular folk, right? People who are not part of this electric car community, or they're not enthusiasts, but they still have the money in their, for $30,000 to $50,000 to spend on a car. Where do you think this is going to go, and at what point, and what will it take for BMW in particular and other legacy manufacturers in general to finally wake up and start producing cars that are not just to catch up with a Tesla, with Tesla cars, but also just to try to have the best ultimate driving machine that they can?
Well, BMW claims that's going to be the i4, and that's coming in 2022. So, still 2.5 years, but they claim that that's going to be their world-class, long-range Tesla beater. And who knows? That maybe it will be an outstanding car. Let's face it, BMW knows how to make cars. And they know how to make EVs. You might not love how the i3 looks, Alex, but it's a damn good electric car. It drives great. It's very efficient. They got a lot of things right with the i3. The i4, if it's a more conventional styling, if it seats 5, if it's long range, then we have a picture of it up there. That's the concept, obviously. But from what I understand, the lines are going to be very similar. It's going to be like a 4 Series Grand Coupe, all electric. They're quoting some crazy numbers like, 375 miles of range. I don't know what rating that's on. I'd be, surprised if it was 300 miles on the EPA range rating, but who knows? We'll kind of have to wait and see. But that's what they claim is going to be their head-to-head Tesla fighter. The problem is they don't have the supercharger network, and that's a big advantage for Tesla. And I know you and I have had some conversations about Electrify America, about Ionity in Europe. And yeah, they're coming up, and they're coming on strong, and they're going to have a lot of stations in the ground, especially by the end of the year. They're going to triple the amount of stations they already have. I don't even know how that's possible, but they kind of have to, because they're under the order from the consent decree. They have to have a certain amount by the end of this year, and they're already all in the ground. They're just installing them. But there's a big difference in the functionality of them. Electrify America has a lot of issues to work through, and it's not even their fault. It's the fact that these stations have to service all brand of cars. And most people don't understand that's incredibly complicated, because every electric vehicle car manufacturer makes their software different. They interpret the CCS protocol slightly differently, and that makes for charging a nightmare. I had a problem on the Electrify America station when I was test driving the Kia Niro EV. It wouldn't initiate a charge. I talked with Electrify America. They just kind of went, oh God, Kia, we're having trouble with Kia, and the software isn't exactly working. And the thing that Tesla has is it's all their cars that plug into the supercharger network. So there's no having to talk to, dozens of other car companies to talk to them about how their software interacts with the charging station. So they can just make it work, and it does. I've supercharged 3 times now, and it's just as any Tesla owner can tell you, you back into the stall, you get out, you grab the connector, you plug it in, you walk away. That's not how it is with charging on, Charge Point or EVgo or Electrify America. You've got to get your card, you've got to swipe it, you've got to watch it, make sure it initiates, make sure the car starts charging. It's a totally different experience. So even if BMW comes out with a world beater 2.5 years from now, I'm still not certain that the infrastructure will be anywhere near the experience that you have with a Tesla.
Well, I mean, I don't always agree with that in terms of like, a lot of times people use the fast charging once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year when they travel long distance. Very few people, use it regularly. So to me, that's probably not going to be a deal breaker. So I guess maybe let me reframe my question. Besides the infrastructure, how, what is it that they need to do? Because, I mean, I think me and you agree that they haven't really even started thinking the right way. Because, I mean, you and I, we've talked to a lot of these teams that are inside of these bigger companies, right? Volkswagen Group, BMW Group, Mercedes-Benz, Daimler, whatever. And all those teams, even though they're enthusiastic, they do want to come up with the technology. They might even have a technology. They're still fighting this bigger monster that they're still inside of, in trying to get out and trying to change this monster into the beauty, if you will. And it's tough. The I team from BMW had enough at some point, and that's how Byton was born, right? With Karsten and a few other leaving. And I'm sure you and I have talked to many of other legacy manufacturer electric car teams that are still quite frustrated with the fact that they have their hands tied behind the back. When can that start changing? Do you think? Do you think dealerships have to kind of evolve? Do you think the direct sales structure has to take place? What's that thing that needs to change?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here.
I know.
Going back to your earliest comments about supercharging and DC fast charging, I don't want to beat this to death, but see, you're looking at it through your eyes and my eyes, where we live in private homes. We can plug in and charge our cars at night, but we're early adopters. When the early majority starts buying electric cars, and that's really the next wave of people, they don't all own private homes, Alex. They live in apartments. They live in multifamily dwellings that can't charge at home. They're going to rely on DC fast charge as their just to get through the week. And so it has to be easy, it has to be ubiquitous, and it has to be inexpensive. Otherwise, we'll be stuck in this, under 10% of electric vehicle adoption across the country. So it is important that the DC fast charge infrastructure mature. And for that reason, not for you and me really, because honestly, as you mentioned, I don't need to use it much. I used it those 3 times for fun, just to try it out. But since I can charge at home, I'm rarely going to use DC fast charge. But in order for us to really have electric vehicle adoption, it has to be available for people that live in multifamily dwellings. And they're going to rely on DC fast charge, plug in once every couple of days, get their 200 miles of charge, and then kind of like a gas station, once a week, they'll go to the DC fast charge station rather than a gas station.
If you ask me, sorry to quickly address that. If you ask me, if you live in an apartment and you don't have access to daily charging that's dedicated, it's not time for you yet to buy an electric car. But I get your point that people do want these cars and they end up buying them, and they end up having to, including Tesla owners, going to superchargers. So we can definitely spin it into a different video. I
disagree with you. I'm not happy with that statement that you're limiting people and saying, because you live in an apartment, you can't have this great electric car.
No, I'm not saying you can't have.
Yes, you just did. You just did.
Well, okay. I'm just saying you're not ready. Maybe I shouldn't say you're not ready. The universe is not ready for you to have an electric car. I'm not saying you shouldn't have one, right? I'm just saying it's going to be much tougher and more expensive to do because, Electrify America is not very cheap. And even if you buy a Model 3, Model S right now, most likely you're going to have to pay for charging there as well. That's getting more expensive as well. So I'm not saying they shouldn't have it. It's much more expensive and difficult, and the universe is not ready for them. If you will, I'll go zen on you like that.
No, I know what you're saying. And I think you know what I'm saying is that I want the infrastructure in place so that anyone who wants an electric car can get one. They
We
don't
agree
have
on
to
that.
own a home. They don't have to, So, and we should be there in a few years,
Yeah,
especially now with Electrify America. So that's
100%.
one thing. Now we're going over to BMW. You talked a little about some of the I team leaving, and that's true. The early BMW I team, led by Dr. Krantz. Under him was Henrik Wanders and Carson Brightfield and a number of other people. Pretty much the whole team left somewhere around 2015, 2016, 2017, in that time frame. And I spoke with all of them since they've left, and pretty much what everyone has said to a man was, look, when the BMW I started in 2010, 2011, we were pretty much given carte blanche to say, go out there and build electric cars, and we're behind you. We'll give you the resources you need. And then 2014, 2015, right around the time that BMW had a new CEO, the one that's stepping down now, Mr. Kruger, they pulled back and they said, you know what, we're going to kind of slow walk this electrification thing, see how the market goes. And, when time is right, we're going to really accelerate it again. And that's when a lot of them went out and got new jobs. So, they still have some great people there, and they still have a lot of people that believe in electrification, but there's no doubt that BMW took like a 3 or 4 year stumble. And I think they get the message now. We'll have to see. They're moving their program up. They say by 2023, they're going to have 25 electrified cars, and that means 13 of them are going to be all electric and 12 will be plug-in hybrids. So in 4 years from now, BMW is going to have 13 all electric cars. And right now they have one. So, we know the Mini is coming out. That's a BMW brand car. The iX3, the i4, and then the iNext, which is the full-size SUV. That's 4. There's still 9 more fully electric cars that'll be in showrooms within 4.5 years. So they seem to have righted the ship, but we won't know until we see the cars and see how capable they are and, how efficient, what kind of range. But I have a feeling they're going to put out some good products because, like I said, BMW knows how to make cars. They know how to make compelling cars that people like to drive. It's just that right now in the electric vehicle segment, Tesla has stolen their thunder.
Absolutely agree. So I think we also came up with our maybe next week's topic as well. Talk about the infrastructure. We'll see if there's any other news that will take that over. But I think that's an interesting discussion to have. I had the same discussion with Eli Burton of My Tesla Adventures, another weekly contributor to this channel. And we kind of agreed that, let's save it for the next week. But for now, thanks once again for coming on. This is a very interesting story, not just about your personal experience, but where we're heading right now, and a big red flag to the entire legacy manufacturing industry. So thanks for once again hanging out with me here, and I will see you next week.
Very good. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for having me on again. And have a nice week, guys.
All right. So as always, it's great to have Tom here. I feel like we just started a new discussion that we will continue next week unless something big happens and we have to talk about that. But I'm sure we'll cover that topic. Now that I know we disagree, me and Tom agree a lot. But now that we disagree on this could be an actually interesting discussion, and we definitely want to involve you guys. But today's video, the reason I wanted to talk to Tom about it, and I know we waited for a few weeks specifically so he can get some driving experience with a top, Model 3, and we didn't want to have a review because everyone's done that. But the journey that Tom actually took is from a very different place than a lot of Tesla owners have. And the fact that he did it now and really gave a pretty fair chance to BMW, that just indicates that Tesla is really the high mark here for the legacy manufacturers. And to me, this should be a training video for those executives. I'm glad that BMW got rid of their CEO. I'm hoping, it's just rumors, but I'm hoping it's partially because he's really looked the other way as far as electrification goes. And this story is gonna continue unless BMW, Mercedes, and all the other legacy manufacturers are gonna get their stuff together. Now even Kia and Hyundai, who me and Tom kind of agree that they have great SUVs, but Tom was the first one to say that, hey, sounds like another compliance car, because they're not really trying to sell them or make them, and I agree with him. So definitely something to think about it. But at the same time, when I was getting my 2012 Model S, never I thought in the world that in 6 years this is going to be the golden standard for electric cars. So I really really love that. Don't forget to participate in our test program that we call Feed a YouTuber. Just for $5 a month. Just $5 a month, you can provide food, shelter, and video equipment to this guy right here. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/for E4electric. Can't spell my own channel's name anymore. All right. But if you still want something for free, we got something for free for you in addition to the free reservation for Byton cars, for the Byton M-Byte. And it's our VIP list. Don't forget to get on there. Go to e4electric.com/VIP and we'll send you a bonus story every week over the weekend. All right. Looking forward to your comments. You probably already started writing them. So other than that, I will see you guys next time. And remember to stay charged.